and action.
Okay. Hey, everyone. Let me start over again. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to My Ship Story podcast. I'm Eric, and I'm here with our usual suspects of Brad and Scott. And how are you guys doing?
Well, I'm doing great, but my hair is constantly my hair is just terrible in this. But anyway, but other than that, I'm great.
I was going to say, but how is that different from your usual?
Not very different because I've always had some hair issues, but doing okay
You
now.
need to find a better person to cut your hair, I think.
I don't know.
Supercuts is not cutting it, huh?
No, and
Flowbee doesn't work either, probably.
No. I'm just glad I still have some hair. That's what I'm thankful of. I mean, I shouldn't be worried about it's all messed up. At least I have some.
That's true. There you go. You can't complain.
I can complain.
Well, that's true. You can. Well, let's kick this off. So our guest this week is Michelle Martin Wedig. I had the pleasure of working with Michelle on Majesty on the inaugural team, and she was a fantastic boss. And the thing that I think that a lot of people may not know is that Michelle was the first female chief purser in the Royal Caribbean Fleet, which is quite a trendsetter there. That's
really,
trailblazer. Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So Michelle worked from early 80s to early 90s on Royal Caribbean. And again, Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome. It's great to see you. It's been a long time.
I know.
Well, I saw you at the reunion. Thanks for putting that together. It's been a long time ago now. What has it been, like almost 10 years?
Yeah, the first reunion we had was in 2011.
Yeah, so almost, yeah.
Holy cow. Yeah. I did not know it was that long.
Yeah. That was
the one we had in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
That was a great time.
So,
that was quite the weekend.
It was really fun. It was really fun.
That was the first one, right? That
one.
wasn't the cruise.
No, that was the one we had in the hotel. Yeah. We were worried in the beginning. People were not signing up for it. And then all of a sudden, last minute, everybody came piling in. We ended up with like 400 plus people.
Wow.
Yeah, it's because we're like used to being like in Russia in like 2 days or something like that. It's no big deal.
That's wild how many people sign up at the last part of it. I used to put on this 5K zombie thing, and I'd never set up anything like a 5K or anything like that before. And all of the people that I were talking to that did 5K, set them up and everything, they're like, well, just don't freak out because people sign up at the last minute. I'm like, nah, man, I'm grassroots. I'll get this out. Like, and you have so much money invested into it. And the week of, we were all like, oh my God, we've got like 15 people. We're going to have to cancel. And then the next day, 55 people signed up, then 400 people signed up, and then 300. And then we were like on the other end, holy crap. But
any thoughts on doing another one in the future?
Well, I know Michael talked about doing one since this past year is the 50th anniversary of Royal Caribbean's ship, like Song of Norway sailed for the first time 50 years ago in 1970. So I think he was wanting to put something together, but then with the coronavirus and all that hit, nothing ever came through with that. I know the Norwegians were putting on a reunion in Norway this summer. Well, it's supposed to be July 31st. Actually, it should have been this past weekend, and they had to cancel. So they're looking to reschedule that next year, which I think would be fun in Norway with all the Norwegians. But yeah,
a lot of drinking.
Yeah.
It
doesn't matter where we are. I think there would be a lot of drinking no matter what country we were in. So, or ship.
And before we get too far away from talking about the reunion down in Fort Lauderdale, I didn't know you before, but we got to talking, and I stole your drink at the bar, and you were like, "Hey, you're taking my drink." Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. I'm like, people can't steal my drink. Not that there
like,
wasn't a
"Hey!"
whole lot flowing anyway, Brad. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
The Hilton made a lot of money that weekend, let's just say.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
It was worth it for them, all of our shenanigans.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So
Oh, yeah.
I know you sailed a lot with Michael Bailey when he was
Yes, I did.
starting out. So
Mhm.
hopefully one of these stories will involve Michael, maybe.
Well, there's quite a few stories with Michael, but I don't know that I should tell them all. He might
Well,
not
that's
like
true.
that.
No. But you can share one.
We just
Yeah,
want the
maybe.
worst one. We just
share
want the worst one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
Actually,
our main goal here is we want Michael on the show. That
well,
would
you
be
should.
awesome.
Yeah, I think have you asked him?
No, but I've got it in my mind. He'll be asked in the next few days.
I was going to say, I can ask him if you want me to.
Yeah, I think it would be good for Michelle to ask. I remember Michael because he was the operations manager for Majesty for a while when I was sailing on there, and of course Stacy was on the Majesty, so he came on when the Majesty first came out. So I got to know him a little bit, but I don't. Obviously, you know him well, so it would be.
Stacy as first purser was part of the deal when they asked me. With the Monarch, I brought the Monarch out from Boston. I joined in Boston. Michael and Stacy were in France. And I was supposed to be taking over in Boston when they came across so that Michael could move into the office. That was the point of me taking over then. So he sailed down to Miami and then he got off the ship. But part of the deal when I brought the Majesty out was Stacy had to be the first purser. He's like, you have to take her with, because I know he wanted to come back there. So that was part of the deal. You got to bring her with you, which why would I say no to that? But
of course,
that was part of the deal. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why don't we just go ahead and then dive into one of your stories here?
Okay, I'll tell you the first story I'll tell you is when I started on the ships for the very first time.
Hey,
so
real
that
quick,
was on the
Michelle,
Sun Viking.
Leading into this, we're trying to get everybody to say, "Hey, my name is Michelle Wedig, and this is my ship story."
Sure.
And then go into it. Yeah.
Okay. My name is Michelle Martin Wedig, and this is my ship story. When I first started with the cruise lines, I had a friend. It's kind of a weird story. I went down to visit a friend who had moved down to Miami after high school. I live like an hour south of Chicago. So I traveled with my family, didn't do a whole lot of traveling. But when I was 19, I went down there to visit her and her family. And she worked for Royal Caribbean in the office. She said, hey, why don't you come on board for lunch? I'm going to take you over to the Song of Norway for lunch that day. And when I went on there, I'm like, oh my gosh, this would be my dream job. I would love this job. I was totally in awe. So when I came back home, I said, I'm going to send my resume down, try to get on the ship. She put in a good word for me. But like we all know, they call you at the last minute and say, hey, we need you there like 3 days later. So I had a really good job up here. I thought I bought a new car, and so they called me like 4 days before and they said, hey, we've got a 2-month assignment for you to go on. Somebody's going on leave and it's just 2 months. And I thought I can't miss that opportunity because if I do, I'm never going to get this chance again. So I said, okay, packed up everything, went down to Miami, went through all the physicals, stayed in that old Howard Johnson's on, Biscayne Boulevard. It was terrible.
No.
Oh, I was scared to death. And then the clinic they make you go to get your physical. I'm like, where am I? Like, this is not a good area. So I was being signed on to the Sun Viking. And the Sun Viking, as we all know, was the smallest ship in the fleet, barely anybody on there. And the pursers department had a chief purser, a first purser, a second purser, and only 2 assistant pursers.
Oh my God.
The desk was only open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., not 24 hours back then.
Well, that was nice.
And yeah, that was nice. So I, go on the ship, timid as a little mouse, looking like cream cheese because I hadn't been out in the sun, all these people are tan and David Armitage is the chief purser and, so I get on the ship, they show me to my cabin. My first roommate was a Norwegian girl, Tina. She was at that reunion back in 2011. In fact, that was the first time I had seen her in 30 years.
Wow.
So she shows me down to my cabin. It's a little dinky cabin. I got the top bunk. I'm like, what have I gotten myself into? And so
Were
the
they
very
even-
first night,
Were they even smaller than like Majesty and stuff like that?
the cabins,
Uh-huh.
yeah, they were. And, you know, had the old orange curtains, just nasty, little tiny porthole, like one little one. So, you know, that day, as we all know, Miami-Dade is just crazy. And so you just get thrown right in. You know, there was only 2 assistant pursers. So I was completely, get your uniform on, show up at the desk. And I remember being so shy and quiet, you know, and David Armitage started calling me Mouse because he's like, you're as quiet as a mouse. Like, you don't say anything. Well, I was petrified. So that night, my Norwegian roommate said, hey, you know, let's go down to, it's been a long day. Let's go down to D deck, you know, to all the Norwegian cabins. You know, that's where she would hang out, you know, with the Norwegians. We didn't go to Club Fram. We went to somebody's cabin. I'll never forget. I was wearing nylons because, you know, my legs were so creepy. So I go into this cabin. It is just hazy, smoky.
Yeah.
Everybody's drinking beer. They're all packed into a D-deck cabin, you know, a little 2-bunk thing. And there was probably 20 people packed in here. So I get in there. I'm like, oh my gosh. Then I see somebody rolling something, right? They're rolling. I'm like, oh my God, they're like smoking dope on the ship. I didn't realize that they roll their own cigarettes, you know? And so, of course, they're all speaking Norwegian. They're like, where are you from? I said, Chicago, because I'm not going to say where I'm from. Nobody would know where that is. And so the whole time they're like, oh, Al Capone, Al Capone. I'm like, is that all you know about Chicago is Al Capone? So we're drinking, you know, and I'm thinking, oh, I don't know if this life's for me. I was missing home. We're at sea. The ship's moving, even though it's a small ship. And I remember a Norwegian accidentally took a cigarette, burnt a hole in my nylon. I'm like, okay, I shouldn't be wearing these anyway. But I remember it was a 14-day cruise. So we were going to Puerto Rico first. So that's a good 2 days at sea before you get there, right? So I'm thinking, oh, I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if I can do it. And I remember getting off the ship in Puerto Rico. And I made a beeline to the call center, you know, on the pier. They had that big call center where you could call home. And I remember calling my mom and saying, oh my gosh, Mom, I hate this. I was crying. I'm like, I miss home. I want to come home. Okay, so that was day 3. By the time we got back to Miami, I called my mom. I said, I am never coming home. It was completely flipped around. Yeah. I'm like, oh no, this is the life.
What year was this, Michelle? What year was
this? This was March of 1981.
81.
I was only 20 years old. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh, so they hired people under 21 back then.
Yeah, I was 20 when they hired me. Yeah. I spent my 21st birthday on board. So,
oh, that must have been fun.
Yeah, well, it was fun leading up to that. Drinking age back then was only 19, so I'm really dating myself. But
oh yeah. No, but I remember because in Florida, so drinking age in Florida used to be 18, and when they changed the cutoff, my older brother, who's a year older, made the cutoff, and I missed it, and so I had to wait to 21, and he could drink from 18, but I just borrow his ID, you know, like one does.
Yeah. And everybody drinks on the ship anyway. I mean,
I was going to say, when you get on the ship, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it was a party every night. I didn't want to go home. I'm like, this is the life. But then at the end of the 2-month time that I was there, and David Armitage, by the way, started calling me Mouse in the beginning. By the end of that first cruise, I was Mouse turned to mouth. I was a completely 360 from where I started. So, but now he's still, when he emails me and stuff, he still calls me Mouse. It's pretty funny.
Well, when you said that they called you Mouse, I was like, that's not the Michelle I know.
No, that was like the first couple days. That was it. Only lasted a few days. But I did my 2-month contract, and then after that, they asked me to go to the Song of Norway, and I had already had my hopes set on going home. So I said, no, I don't want to go. I'm going back home. So I came back home. Got home in like June of that year. So I did maybe 2.5 months down there. And I remember going through another winter at home, and I thought, this is for the birds. I want to go back. So I called back Shoreside Human Resources, Lou Vaccaro. I don't know if you remember him. He's like, absolutely no way are we bringing you back. Like, no, you did us wrong. You didn't want to go to the Song of Norway. We're not taking you back. So I just kept after them. He still said no. So finally one day I get a hold of the assistant HR manager, Robin Lindsay, who's now with NCL, and he actually brought me back. And I don't think Lou knew it. because when he found out I was coming back, he was very upset. But I came back a year later, almost exactly a year later, to the Song of Norway, and then I was there for 11 years. So,
wow, on the Song.
Never looked back.
Yeah, where'd the Song of Norway go at that time?
Back then, we were doing 7-day cruises. Sometimes we were doing the Eastern Run. You know, for a while we did the Eastern Run, San Juan, St. Thomas. We didn't have out islands back then, so there were no out islands to visit. So there was a lot of, full days at sea. And we used to do the Western Caribbean for a while. So I would say most of the time I spent with Royal Caribbean was on the Song of Norway and Nordic Prince. When I first became a chief purser, Sun Viking was my first ship, which was great to go back and start my career as a chief purser. So I went through all the ranks on my way up. I did the assistant purser second first, and then chief. So Frank Basso is the one who gave me the opportunity to become a chief purser, which was awesome. So yeah, and then after that, I never worked on the Song of America. I never had an opportunity to go there. No, never worked there. A lot of my summers in the 80s were spent in Bermuda on the Nordic Prince.
Oh yeah.
Which was great back then because you did 3 full days in Bermuda.
Right.
And that was like having kind of a real life, you know. You thought, wow, this is like we can go out at night, you know. We felt like a real person. But yeah, I did mostly Song of Norway, Nordic Prince, and then I got the opportunity to bring the new ships out. I only did a small stint on the Sovereign as a replacement for Michael. Michael went almost an entire year on the Sovereign because he was making so much money that he didn't want to leave. And
postcards.
Yeah, so they were finally like, you got to go. And I think he only went off for maybe 3 weeks. So that's my only time I spent on the Sovereign. And then I did Monarch and the Majesty. So Majesty was my last ship. I ended up quitting because Michael wanted to send me to the Viking Serenade after the Majesty. I said, absolutely no way.
Really?
Really?
Yeah. Oh my God.
The consensus of our most recent guests have been they love the Viking Serenade.
I know.
Viking Lemonade. And I find that so surprising, mainly because they probably weren't pursers.
Yeah, that could be. I went on there when we did the Train the Trainer program. Michael Bailey and I established that Train the Trainer program. I don't know if you remember that, but it was like back in '91. And so we did that. We worked shoreside together for a while. So after we had everybody in Miami to do the Train the Trainer program, I had to go out to the different ships to make sure the trainers that we chose from each ship were doing what they were supposed to do. So I did a stint on the Viking Serenade. It was just a week. And it wasn't bad, but to go from the glitz and glamour of the Monarch and the Majesty to say, hey, now we're sending you the Viking Serenade, I kind of felt like it was a step back for me. And, you know, Steve and I were engaged. We're going to be getting married after that. And it was like, you know, okay, maybe it's time to just let it go. So even though Michael was going to send me there, still love him dearly. And he was in my wedding. So no hard feelings.
Yes. So I was going to say, I always thought that you had left because you were getting married to Steve. So, and for these guys that don't know, I was able to get a couple weeks off the Majesty and go to Michelle's wedding. And it was the most fun wedding I have ever been to. Like the night before, 2 nights before, the night before, and the wedding. It was full of ship people. Yeah. And we were just, oh my God, it was insane. It was as bad as it was on ships. It was just as bad, much drinking as we did. I was hungover a lot. I mean, the only time I've ever been drunk on a plane was on the way to your wedding.
Thank you, Neil Sybil.
Hey, Michelle, on all of your ships and all the positions, who do you think on whichever ship had the biggest, craziest, wildest parties? And do you remember any, like, your wildest party or any crazy?
Yeah, we used to do some crazy parties in Bermuda. There used to be I don't know if you guys remember him. If you were there back in the 80s, you might have remembered him. But his name is Peter Lehusen. He's from Sweden. And he worked on the Nordic Prince. No. His family owned a house in Bermuda. So we'd pull into Bermuda and we'd go stay at his house. It had a pool. The parties we had at his house, we'd cook all our own food. We'd grill. I mean, literally people would just go there and stay for 3 days. You'd come back to the ship to work your shift. It was like a huge party every time we went into Bermuda. So that was a lot of fun. Neil Sybil always had the best parties on the ship whenever I worked with Neil. That man is absolutely crazy. Working the front desk with him was unbelievable. Like,
I can't. Yeah. You have to give us a Neil story because I worked with Neil. Brad, I'm not sure if you worked with Neil Sybil,
I've
but
heard the
Neil
name,
is
though.
the only. Yeah. So Neil was probably the only chief that I like partied really hard with. Like most chiefs were
yeah,
like, "We'll have a drink and we'll do a little bit," and but Neil was the one going down to my cabin to get me out to like, "Okay, we're gonna go party. Come on, and
yeah.
he would like practically force me to go drinking. And I was like, he was the only chief that was like that. So you must have some really good Neil Sybil stories.
Oh, well, when I worked, I'll tell you a quick couple of them, and they might not be too clean. But when I worked the
Perfect.
front desk with him, when I worked the front desk, and I hope he's not ever listening to this, but when I worked the front desk with him, I don't know if you guys remember on the smaller ships, on embarkation and debarkation day, you had to make like a long list of announcements, right? And the PA system microphone was behind the purser's desk. So you had to lean over, right, to talk into it. And you had like everybody be waiting in that main lobby to go off the gangway to get off the ship that day.
Yeah.
So you always had people, passengers crowding around you, and you're at the front desk. Well, first of all, we all know Neil used to drink like crazy, right? So he'd come to work reeking of alcohol the next morning,
Yeah.
just spewing from his pores. He used to like fart behind the front desk while you're down there making your announcement. He'd like come up and fart by you in like total cloud. One time he pulled his pants down behind the front desk. People couldn't see him, but we could. Like,
Oh man.
oh my gosh. Then we had this thing. Okay, so the microphone would come up, right? And it had all the buttons of where, like 1, 2, and 3 was this area of the ship. You had to push all the buttons and the microphone came up. They had this thing on the Nordic Prince that somebody had hand knit. They called it a dick warmer. So it was like a knitted thing, had 2 little, and then and he would, like, we're down there doing our thing. He would put that over the microphone. So when we're making our announcement, in the middle of the announcement, he'd put this dick warmer over the microphone just to throw us off. And then we'd all bust out laughing or have to stop in the middle of what we were doing. And then all these people are in the lobby watching you. It's like, come on, Neil. He was so good about doing that, making you look like a fool. And then we also, his brother Aaron, I don't know if you knew this, Eric, but his brother Aaron, he actually worked on the ship before Neil. So I used to work with Aaron too. Those two are complete opposite. Like Aaron could drink, but nothing. Neil is like a true rugby player, Welsh guy, where Aaron was very put together and, calm. And I mean, he would drink and stuff, but Aaron used to have a book at the front desk that we would put at the purser's desk that we would put stories in. So if somebody came and asked a question like, what time's the midnight buffet? I mean, we all hear that. Do those stairs go up? Where do I go to see a sunset? It's like, So we had this book and we called it As the Propeller Turns, and we kept it in the purser's desk. I wish I knew where that book ended up, because we'd all write stuff, all these pursers, assistant pursers would go in and out,
Is that where all of the cruise director's speeches and stuff came from? Like, if we go to the photos, how do we know which photo is ours? And, all that stuff. Is that like where all that came from?
Probably. There were some really good stories in there.
This meeting end in 10 minutes. Oh my gosh. All right, well, keep going. It's telling me that we're running out of time, and then the meeting's going to end in 10 minutes.
Oh.
So you guys keep going. I'm gonna upgrade real quick.
Okay. Yeah, so those are my Neil Sybil stories. He had a party in his cabin once, and he put the ice in the shower. And you know how hairy he is, right? We all know how hairy Neil is.
Yeah.
And there's like hair stuck all over the sides of the shower, and he's got beer cans.
We do?
Well, yeah. If you work with him, you would know.
Yeah, you would know.
So there's a ice in the shower story with Brad, but maybe we'll hold on to that one for now.
Oh, okay.
No idea what.
I wish I would have worked with you, Brad.
Well,
When did you start, Brad? I don't think we ever were on the same ship. Ever.
No, we were never on the same ship. I started in 91, so I was a little like.
So you were starting as I was going to the bigger ships, and then France, and then I left. So.
But I was on the Song of Norway for quite a while. I did 2 contracts on Song of Norway. I was on there for almost 2 years.
Yeah. It's a good ship. I mean, those
It's a
smaller
great
ships,
ship.
I mean, I would have to say out of all of my experiences on the ship, you know, Sun Viking's got a place in my heart.
Hey,
It
I'll
was
be right
my
back.
first
Keep
ship.
going. I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah. You know, Song of Norway, Nordic Prince, those 3 ships were, you know, but I think Sun Viking was the most special ship. Bringing out the Majesty was awesome too. Having that whole France experience was, you know, there's nothing like it, as you can attest to, Eric, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And so Scott was also in the inaugural. He was one of
Yep.
those, remember Stage Crew was the first
Yeah.
ship, Majesty was the first ship. So Scott was there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was great.
Yeah.
I had so much fun during that inaugural.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a blast. And I love that, you know, stuck in New York for a week. That
Yeah.
that was not bad at
That was
all.
awesome. Yeah, that was awesome. And do
Yeah.
you remember at the hotel, we had that big dinner before we left. Remember, we
Uh-huh.
had all the pursers in that big dinner.
Yeah.
But do you remember that hotel that you guys stayed at? The beers, when you'd order a beer, were like, the steins
Yeah.
were this big.
Yeah.
I have a picture. I need to put it on Facebook. I have a picture. I ordered a Kir Royale because I'm
Uh-huh.
not really a beer drinker. Oh my gosh, that thing came out in a Pilsner glass. It was this tall.
Really?
A
Wow.
Kir Royale.
A Kir Royale. Yeah.
So you need to post
Oh,
it
boy.
on our My Ship Story page.
Oh, I can. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll post a picture of all the people that were at the wedding too.
Oh yeah, you know, I pulled out a picture from the wedding too that I was looking through pictures the other day, and that's why I started looking and remembering who was at that wedding.
Yeah. Yeah, that place definitely, for what we paid for the open bar per person, we made out on that deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, did you guys, when we were on ships and stuff on, you know, it was before the Majesty and stuff, but did you guys ever I think it was Ocho Rios, go to that big house where they had all the parties? Like, I think Keith Richards or something supposedly owned the house, but it was a big white house.
Two-story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Greg Maxwell used to have parties there.
Right.
And I went once, I think, when I was on Song of America, I went. And I think because it was Western Caribbean Run, which Majesty took over. And I think I also went there with the Majesty as well.
I actually have a video that I found with you there when we all went there. I think Jeff Arpin was the cruise director at the time.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Did you guys go on that before?
No, Michelle? I've never been there. Nope. Never went there. No, I used to just go to San Souci. Do you remember that in Jamaica?
Yeah.
It was like a hotel and they had a great lunch and we just sit and relax at San Souci. But I never really cared for getting off in Jamaica. I didn't like everybody hounding me all the time when you got off the ship.
Yeah.
I didn't like it at first, but I started really getting into it. So whenever I'd go off and they would hassle me, I would hassle them. And it started getting really fun. But in Ocho Rios, when we would go, I would always go down to what they called the Sailor's Hole. And it was this little shack down by a stream, and you'd go in there and you could order fish, and they'd run down to the beach and they would catch a fish.
Oh, geez.
And they would bring it back and they would go get ackee. And they would mix up some ackee and fish, and it was so good. And then they'd roll you a joint and let you sit in a hammock by the stream with all these flowers falling down. It was awesome.
You're in paradise.
Every time.
Oh, it was great.
See, Jamaica grew on me too, because we used to go down to the river and do the tubing down.
Yeah.
And then Lucille would get on the raft, and she was like the queen of the raft.
She's crazy.
Yeah, Lucille was so much fun. And she would have the cooler full of beer, and she would like chug it to us as we're on the inner tubes, just floating down slowly down the river. And then whoever wanted to smoke could smoke, because there were people just on the shore saying, "What do you want? What do you want?"
Yeah.
And it was just like an all-day thing or an afternoon thing. We used to do that quite a bit, and that was a blast too.
It is a beautiful country.
We used to go down to the you know, where you buy all the t-shirts and stuff in the little shopping area. And they used to have these tables with little bitty, you know, like your little ketchup thing that you put at Arby's or something, but they had these little cups set around this table of all the different alcohol to trying to sell you alcohol. And we would get one of our friends to get the employee to go over here and show him some shirts, and we'd run in there and drink like 30 shots of different alcohol and you know, two different places and get just wiped. But
I actually have a rum story from Port-au-Prince, Haiti. When I was on the 2-week cruises on Sun Biking when I first started, somebody's like, oh, you got to go to the rum factory in Haiti. I said, okay. So we made a day trip, took a taxi up there. Oh my goodness. They had rum in every flavor. I'm not kidding. And they just, oh, you got to try this, got to try this, got to try this. I think I passed out in the taxi on the way back. I woke up in my cabin like 4 hours later, and I had these homemade woven bags from Palms with probably 6 or 8 bottles of rum, different flavors. So the first thing I saw when I woke up, I'm like, oh no. I don't even remember buying any of it. That's how bad that was. That was a rough trip down the mountain.
Do you guys have Costco where you are?
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, I went to Costco and I turned around a corner and there was these little bitty Tortuga rum cakes. And I was like, holy, and now they're made out of, I think, Jack Daniels or something. They're not Tortuga rum or anything, but they're like whiskey cakes or something. But it's Tortuga, and it was from Grand Cayman. And so I don't know if they changed or not, but I just remember that red cake box from Grand Cayman.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Eating so much of that stuff. I swear at least one time I probably got drunk off of eating cake. But, you know,
we would assign someone. If nobody was going off the ship, we would like, okay, it's your day. You need to go off, get a rum cake, bring it back so we can all eat it.
Yeah.
And that was their only job. They didn't want to go, but we forced them to go.
Because it was
get
a
rum
pain.
cake and bring it back.
Well, it was a pain because you had to tender in, and it was just a
was a
nightmare
pain.
getting in.
Yeah.
But I remember sometimes the port agents used to bring some of those cakes on and desserts and stuff for us.
The port lecturers, Laura Lieberman, she would bring us one to devour every so often. But hey, what is and this is around the table, what is a item? Like, and I thought about this because of the Tortuga rum cake, but what's an item or a song that takes you right back to a time that you were on the ships? Other than Ole Ole, Brad's favorite song.
Took mine. Took it away from me.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a song. I mean, I guess my stuff is probably liquor. You know, like I see Gosling's rum and I think of the Switzerland in Bermuda, you know, everything's associated with alcohol. You see the rum that's from Barbados that we used to drink when we go to the waterfront restaurant, you know, different things like that. I don't know that I really have a song that reminds me of the ships though. But I can think
the rum in Barbados was Cockspur.
Yes. Yep. And what was the other one? There's another one too.
Spurs you on. I used to have a T-shirt. I have pictures with me with the T-shirt. The cock that spurs you on.
That sounds like you, Brad.
Oh my gosh. The Norwegian that I'm dating, and that's a long story. I told Eric too, but the Norwegian that I'm dating right now, he wants to. We haven't seen each other for 6 months, right? Because of the travel ban. So it's going on 6 months. I haven't seen him. So we're trying to find an island that we could go to so that we can both go. And Barbados was one of them. He's like, maybe we should go there. There's all kinds of rum tours. I don't know if I could do another rum tour.
Hey, we got about 10 minutes left.
You can do it. We believe in you.
Michelle,
I'm sure I could. I was thinking about it.
Do you have a short story or anything? Michelle, we got about 10 minutes left.
Oh, let's see. You wanted a Michael Bailey story?
Yeah.
Well,
I have a juicy one. Juicy.
Well, I can't think of a juicy story, but I mean, the story that comes to mind first, I guess, is when him and I were. I guess this is probably when him and I became better friends than just coworkers. But we were on the Nordic Prince, and I was second purser. He was the first purser, so we shared that office together. Our desks faced each other, so we literally had to look at each other all day long. And the hotel manager's office was across the hall. And the hotel manager, I don't know if you guys remember him, is Johnny Walker. Do you remember him, Albert Walker? We used to call him Johnny Walker. Oh my gosh, he was this old British dude. And he would smoke cigarettes all day in his office. He loved Johnny Walker. So then that's why we started calling him Johnny Walker. But back then we didn't have printer pursers, right? So we had to do all the printing. We had to go down there. Jim Kislak taught us everything about typesetting, putting ink in the machine. That was the most nightmare. If you want to know, my worst thing about that job was that, working in the print room. Getting up when you were second purser, you had to print the bulletins, you know, to go under the door. You had to get up at like 5 a.m., something stupid. But I'll never forget, the hotel manager always wanted a special cover for the passenger list. Remember, we used to do that passenger list with a cover?
Yeah.
He always wanted a holiday special cover. So he was very picky. So Michael finally got into knowing exactly what he liked, right? So Michael's like, he loves gold. Anytime we put gold in it, he loves gold. He loves this. He loves this type of, you know, font, all this stuff. Michael had him down to a science. So every time we had to print out these passenger lists, Michael always had it down for what, you know, Albert Walker would like. But we used to sit there, Michael and I, and we would argue back and forth across the desk. And the hotel manager would yell from his office, "You two sound like a married couple." He was always yelling at us because we were sitting there talking, you know, yelling at each other like we were, you know, constantly fighting. But no, I think that's where Michael and I first became friends. And then it just grew, you know, through the years. We were really close. And I kind of followed in his footsteps, really, because he became a chief purser and then I became a chief purser. I was kind of right behind him along the way. So he did teach me pretty much everything I knew about becoming a chief purser, but we had a lot of fun the first time he was given the chance to be a chief purser. Dave and Armitage went off for a couple months, and so they said, "Michael, we're going to give you the opportunity on the Nordic Prince." That was like party central, because remember, we used to have free bar signing, you know, unlimited bar signing, unlimited signing to your room. Oh my gosh, it was like the you know, cat had left the mice to play, because we took full advantage the 2 months that he was chief purser of all the amenities that a chief purser used to get. But,
wow. So what's interesting is that previously, and I don't remember when we were discussing this, but we had talked about, you know, we think it was really crazy when we were on board, and compared to today, you know, it's a lot more restrictive. And somebody raised a question, do you think it was even crazier before we sailed? And so you had about 10 years on us. And from what I'm hearing,
yes,
it was crazier before we got there, those 10 years before us.
Yes. You know, there were a lot of things that you saw along the way that changed, you know, like different policies that they would have along the way. When I got there, it was pretty, you know, you could, like, I'm pretty sure now, I don't even think they can have alcohol on board, can they? I thought.
No, yeah, they can. They used to, for a while, Royal Caribbean they went like completely no alcohol.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But they came back when everybody quit.
Yeah, I mean, like, why would you do that? What else do you have to do at night?
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing else to do.
Can you believe it? Like a dry ship? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no way. You can't do it.
That's crazy.
So,
no, you can't do it.
Yeah.
One of the parties, speaking of dry ship, I you know, Scott, you asked me about a party on the Song of Norway, when the purser's office was still only open for, you know, those 12 hours. We didn't do the 24 hours. We had a Christmas party, and we did it from cabin to cabin. So it was progressive. And each, like, you go to the purser, one assistant purser's cabin, they had to come up with a specialty drink.
Right.
But before the night was over, we included the hospital nurses, because they were American at the time. So they were, of course, on deck 5, and they had the big windows you could open, you know, on the promenade deck.
Right.
So we ended up in the hospital, was our last stop, and we were so drunk. We've got pictures. We all crawled out of the windows onto the promenade deck because we'd had all these specialty drinks.
I absolutely love those parties, because I used to do those on the Majesty later on. And so we used to have a 12 days of Christmas party, and we started at the Chiefs office, Chiefs camp. Because they just wanted, the beginning was really small. And so as this traveled, you picked up people because they saw this group of people traveling, going to a party. And so we tried to map out, and then you just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually we just had, the last one was in the crew bar, because it got too big that they didn't even fit in the hallways anymore. I mean, it was like 50, 60 people all like having drinks, but it was bad when you have 12 drinks and they're all like these specialty drinks.
Yeah.
And everybody's just shit faced. I mean, it is.
Yeah, and people are heavy handed when they make a drink on a
Yeah.
ship. It's heavy handed, like they don't hold back,
No.
We had a
no.
party in the hospital once. We called it the VD party for Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And so we all had to wear like hearts and stuff. One of the cruise staff guys, Brett, what's his name? Fastholes? Do you remember him?
Yeah.
He dressed as Cupid. He wore a white diaper, no shirt. I have pictures of that. He would hate me posting those, but yeah, we had a VD party in the hospital for Valentine's Day. That was another good party.
Oh my God.
I had many warnings when I was on ships, but probably the most egregious warning I ever got was when I went down and got one of these Norwegian sailor hats with a little brim and everything, and I put a big heart on it, and I started calling myself Captain Love. And of course I was making the name tag, so I made a name tag, Captain Love. And they gave me a warning for that.
So which captain was it that gave you the warning? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Was it Skoberg Hansen?
Oh no,
He came over
but he was such a dick. But they were
over.
almost
On the Song of Norway. I lived across the hall from him. He came over one night because I had a hot air popcorn popper, and I'd take that thing out of the shower, right? And so he smelled the popcorn and came busting in my room, shirtless, mind you, and confiscated my popcorn popper. I'm like, what?
Okay, we're going to come around to that story in the future. Mary Giuliani's coming on next week, and we have another popcorn popper story from the Majesty when we sailed together. And Neil Sybil's involved with that one too, and Bruce Wolf. So we'll discuss that next week.
That popcorn, as an American, you got to have some popcorn. That wasn't fair.
No,
but I do have to say, when I dated the Norwegian, like the guy that I'm dating now, when I dated him years ago, we had a popcorn popper in our room, and guess what? Nobody ever came to take it.
No. Well,
you
know the right people. It's all you know.
All you have to do is speak Norwegian, and then you get your popcorn popper.
Yeah,
exactly.
Line.
And be a hoosmoose.
Yeah. Yeah. And we all know the meaning of that, right? We all know the meaning of what that is in Norwegian. You guys should know that.
I don't.
I don't know hoosmoose.
I'm not saying it. I'm not saying what a moose is, but
okay.
No.
You can guess.
I'm not even going to go there.
Okay, well, we can say that one offline, but next time you're on, Michelle, because we'll have you back, I am sure, because we just scratched the surface on stories, and I'm sure and this is what happens with everybody is we start talking, and more and more just starts coming back. So we'd be really happy to have you back in the not too distant future, but. I just want to thank you so much for coming on. You've been fantastic. It's been great seeing you. It's been almost 10 years. So it's great seeing you again. And hopefully we'll get to see you, another reunion, hopefully, maybe sometime soon.
I would love to steal another drink from you. I would love it.
Please. And this time I won't yell at you, Brad. This time I won't yell.
Yell at me. I love that.
I'll buy you one.
Well, this has been a great show. Thanks everybody for tuning in. This is My Ship Story, and thanks again, Michelle, and bye for now, everyone.
All right. See you guys. Nice seeing you guys.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye, Michelle. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.